literally sat down and knew what he was going to say before the question was even asked.
Yes, he did. All right, here we go. Braden Conkle, this is just the opening, like I said, minute and change from him with the questions included in there.
Start with the actual game, but then broadly, what's this feel like winning for the fourth time in a row?
It's awesome. I mean, I remember as red shirts, and the game was here, and that year Missoula beat us home field. I remember, just talking to Mitch, Walker, Marcus, all of us, we said we're never going to lose to those guys when we're playing. And just to see that, the work we put in, and here we are 4 years later, and it actually happened, man. It's awesome.
What does it feel to beat them the way you did today?
I mean, I said last night, I'm like, this don't have to be close. Like, we just got to play a good game, and it ain't going to be close. I mean, we seen the tape. We're a good football team. I mean, the only time we lose is when we beat ourselves. So if we just go play a good game, no one can compete with us.
Jackway's hit on the first play of the game.
That was tone set. Right? That's soul-taking stuff. That set the tone. I mean, first, that kickoff, I think like at the 13-yard line. And then our defense goes out there and Quay does that, man. That was awesome. It was a big-time play.
You know what that is?
That's soul-taking stuff right there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can just tell. But I think that what Braden Conkle said there, I think there's twofold. I think there's a tangible and intangible element, which there always is in sports. But the desire and heart that Montana State played with, that was the intangible element. You could see just how much that played an influence in the momentum they were able to harness. But there was also a strong schematic element to this game. And like he said, we saw the tape. We were utterly and fully confident. So we'll tell you more about the schematic advantages that Montana State was able to execute on Saturday in the second break.
Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. Back right after this. At the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Right now, the Silver Slipper is your football headquarters. They have a free shuttle to home Grizz games. There will be one December 7th. The playoff games, 56 television to watch sports on, drink specials every day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, and the friendliest staff in town. Silver Slipper has all you need to watch your favorite games as well. So visit the Silver Slipper. Visit the silverslipperlounge.com for more information and stop by today to see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best kept secrets across the street from Walmart on Brooks, the Super Walmart on Brooks, the Silver Slipper. Check it out.
The biggest season in sports is shifting into overdrive, and the Desperado Sports Tavern has the fuel you need to make it to the finish line. By now, you've heard that the Despo serves the best wings around, but did you know they have a full menu with burgers, nachos, chicken strips, sandwiches, cheese sticks, and even steaks? Fill your tank, then wash it down with an ice-cold beverage or two. Keep your head in the game with 32 HD TVs and room for the whole crew. The Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
Black Friday is coming, and for the hunter or gun enthusiast,
more like Flesh Swap alignment, brakes, shocks, wheels, and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer. They only sell tires, and we're not sure how they sleep with it, because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at FleshSwap.com. Flesh Swap Tires, doing the right thing. 1950.
On Russell, across from the fairground.
Black Friday is coming, and for the hunter or gun enthusiast on your list, the best Black Friday sale is once again at Selway Armory. Selway Armory's annual Black Friday sale is the stuff of legend, with tons of inventory at and even below cost. Put Selway Armory on your schedule and get there this Black Friday and Saturday for the sale of the year on firearms, ammunition, and accessories. Get to the store at 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6 behind IHOP on North Reserve. Selway Armory's Black Friday sale, the best there is.
Hey there, Colter Nuanez from your favorite daily sports talk show, Two Tell Nuanez. I'm here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom, last winter I got a sweet car starter. It's something I think everybody needs.
You know, Colter, I couldn't agree more, and my wife sure thinks so too. We've got a lot of sweet deals. We actually have it capable now where you can start it from your phone from anywhere you'd like. We have two-way remotes that'll confirm to you the vehicle started all the way down to our basic package starting at just $299 installed. Come on in and check us out.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound. Americans waste $300 million single going for more than 10 seconds with more fuel to more emissions. The next time you're stopped for more than 10 seconds at the screen, getting coffee or your child up from school, please turn your vehicle off.
ESPN Missoula
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. The 119th Cat Grizz football game was one of the most lopsided in history. From the opening kickoff to the final gun, Montana State was completely overwhelming in a 48-14 rout of the Montana Grizzlies. With Troy Anderson sidelined due to injury, a dominant Cat offensive line still bulldozed the way to 382 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns on the ground.
Isaiah Infante rushed for 171 yards on 21 carries and had 3 scores in just his second game back from injury. Logan Jones, a Kalispell Glacier product, also cleared the century mark for MSU with 121 yards on the ground and another score.
On the other side of the ball, MSU was nearly as dominant. Montana fumbled on its first offensive play, setting up the first MSU score, and the Grizz didn't pick up a first down until their 4th possession of the game, at which time it was already 17-0. Montana was held to 46 rush yards, much of which was due to the 6 sacks Dalton Snead incurred as the MSU defensive line exploited the Grizzlies. Ultimately, Dalton Snead went for 20 of 34 for 195 yards and no touchdowns. He also had 1 interception. Marcus Knight had both the Montana scores, taking his season total to 21.
Good news for both teams is that they both received a seed and thus a first-round bye on the FCS playoffs. Montana is number 6 in the playoffs and will host the winner of Southeastern Louisiana and Villanova. Montana State, number 5. They host the winner of Albany and Central Connecticut State.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center is brought to you by Aspen Sound.
Welcome back. Montana Football Hour. I don't know if you're happy or if you're not, but it's always fun. At least for us. What a weekend. Montana Football Hour presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Check them out on December the 7th, one day only. It is the Kurtz Polaris 7th annual snow day, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Okay? You go into the Grizz playoff game. You go over there first, get yourself a free lunch, get all the Christmas shopping done off your list, get it all knocked off over there at Kurtz Polaris. Colter, we continue in the Montana Football Hour. You said on our way out, hey, there was the physically dominating side of this. There was also the schematic side of this. Said, what was it that Montana State had figured out? Why were the players so confident going into this thing? They said they had seen some things on tape that they knew that they were going to be able to take advantage of, and they were certainly able to do it. But tell them about it.
Well, Montana's defense is so impressive because of the effort that they play with, how they fly the ball, and the fact that both Jace Lewis and Dante Olson can play multiple gaps at once. That said, it's also an incredibly non-gap sound defense because to rely on those two guys, they're spectacular players. They're, in my mind, the 2 best inside linebackers in the Big Sky Conference. Right. And their style, the 3-3-5 base defense that they run, and the fact that they run all this pre and post snap pressure, where they're bringing the heat. Montana basically lines up with 6 guys in the box at all times, and you never know which 4 are going to come at you. And so often, they just send the linebackers downhill, and they have run blitz-based stunts. It's not just on pass downs. And they lead the league in tackles for loss, and that's how they live. They live based on tackling ball carriers high in the line of scrimmage. If you're going to roll with 6 guys in the box for the duration of the game, and you're not going to adjust, you're not going to bring your Rover or your Sam up in run support, and Montana State, conversely, is going to run 12 and 13 personnel. They're going to run 2 and 3 tight end sets, or a tight end and a fullback, or 2 tight ends. They're going to run it down your throat. And Montana State did such a good job of softening the edges with the fly sweep and the wide receiver reverse stuff. Now all of a sudden you got those linebackers peeking. Then you hit them with a counter to the backside. The gap, Montana State's gap schemes combined with the unsound nature of Montana's defense, boom, that's how you get 382 yards rushing. Those things combined with the fact that you could tell that Montana spent an inordinate amount of time preparing for Troy Anderson. I'm not sure if they expected him to play quarterback for the duration of this game, if they expected him to play quarterback on a higher, more snaps than he did. But either way, the only 4 snaps that Montana looked like the league's leading rushing defense was Montana State ran Wildcat with Travis Johnson. Other than that, Montana looked completely mediocre, and Montana State indeed certainly looked like the leading rushing offense in the conference.
Bobby Hauck was the only Montana Grizzly who came to the press conference. There were no players. And so we will play, first of all, his opening comments, and a guy who was clearly trying to stay in control and hold it together, but also I think was having a difficult time just trying to figure out what had just happened to his football team. And here you go, Bobby Hauck, his opening comments from the press conference.
Good day for them, bad day for us, certainly. They beat us in all 3 phases. And, they played really well. They gave us some stuff we didn't expect and capitalized on it. We did not play well in any of the 3 parts of the game. And, it's a bad day to do that. Certainly this game has import. It's important to us as well. And, feel bad that we had a bad performance, and ultimately that goes on me. I failed getting our team ready to go today. So, I've coached in this game. I've been around it a long time. I don't know if I knew the answer to why. Certainly, we wouldn't have had that kind of performance. But I got to do a better job. Obviously, this is you see the reaction at the end of the game here in the stadium. This game's everything to them. Their sole focus is to beat us. Maybe we need to start doing that ourselves. So, I don't know. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's where I'm failing.
There's a couple of odd statements that Bobby Hauck made in this press conference. That was one of them. This was taken very poorly by Montana State, first of all, by their fan base. It's taken just as yet another shot for no reason, and a baseless one at that. And also, presumably just not true, Coulter. Who takes this rivalry more seriously, at least coming into it, than Bobby Hauck? He's said that repeatedly, that how big a game this is. Everybody understands that. He's been around this game forever. He's been around this rivalry forever. And so to sit there and say, well, they're taking it more seriously than we are, or something to that effect, however you want to read that, was an odd comment to make.
Odd, but also par for the course of this season, because he said that every single year, or every single game, every single week. Everybody treats this like it's their Super Bowl. Everybody thinks that the Grizz are their rivals, and he can spin it both ways. If the Grizz win, man, we just won a team that gave us their best shot. If the Grizz lose, well, you could see that they treated this like a much bigger game than we did. He said the same thing after Sac State.
You can do that in 11 other games. You cannot do that in this game because it's just not true, and everybody knows that.
He was trying to still make fun of the Cats for thinking that it's a bigger deal than it is. And on one hand, I think that he's foolish for doing that. But on the other hand, I think that you can't let it be too big of a deal, because it's certainly an enormous deal for sure. But now that they're both in the playoffs, I think that the number one key factor is both of them moving on.
I understand that, but that right there, the team's not hearing that. He's not preaching to anybody. He's just, he's just talking, I guess, at some stage. Anyway, he did also open up in there about the fact that they saw some stuff that they weren't expecting. He was asked, well, what was it that they did that the Montana Grizzlies weren't ready for?
Yeah, just some of the personnel groups. The run game was a run game, but they gave us some personnel things, Frank, that we weren't expecting. And then, we didn't know Troy wasn't going to play till last night. And we spent all week working on him. That didn't help us. But, that's sort of me making an excuse, but that's a fact.
And I buy that all day. I mean, you did prepare for him, and then he wasn't there, and now you go, oh, well, now what?
Yeah, I mean, 2 points here. Number one, and again, there's benefits and downsides to every coaching style, to every coveted culture. You can have a militaristic, I'm your coach, not your friend type culture that's very successful, and it's still going to have drawbacks. You can have a family type culture where I'm the ultimate male figure in your life, and I'm your second dad, like Jeff Choate, and have it be successful and have it still have flaws. But the whole one game at a time, 1-0 every week, we're only going to treat each game as it's the exact same, and we're going to try to play our best every single day. It's a good tactic. It is. Until you play without emotion and you get absolutely destroyed like they did on Saturday. But also comes with a caveat, because if you're going to say, well, Montana State made a way bigger deal out of this game than we did, that's fine and dandy, but then you're basically taking away and you're admitting the fact that you did not treat your de facto conference championship game
right
with a sense of urgency.
Well, it was de facto championship games. It was a conference championship
Erase
game.
the name on the front of the jersey. It does not matter if you're playing Montana State, Northern Colorado, Southern Utah, Idaho, Eastern Washington, Weber State, Sac State, or anybody that's in the Big Sky Conference. A win, and Montana had a chance to win the conference title in the second year under a new coach who's trying to rebuild a once proud program. To not take that game seriously, or to say that the other team took it more seriously than you, even if you're trying to demean the rivalry and demean the butt whooping you just took, you're just wrong. That's a flaw on your part.
But here's the thing. To me, okay, if that was the case, that's a fireable offense.
Yeah, okay, but we can't be saying that, because, Bobby Hauck's got the Grizzlies as the number 16 in the playoffs.
But this is what I'm saying. I don't think it's that. That's what I'm saying.
You think it's just lip service?
It's a lie. It's just a lie. He did take it. He takes it as seriously as anybody, maybe more so. He got this team as ready to play as he knew how in every aspect, and it was an complete implosion. And so that statement at the end there isn't real. It's just him. Again, when I say he's just talking, I honestly think he was just sitting there trying to figure out the next thing to say. Maybe that's a failing on me. No. Like, it just went so poorly, and he's never had something like that happen to him in this game.
And also, I fully believe that Montana spent a giant amount of time preparing for Troy Anderson, preparing for the Wildcat elements, preparing for the zone read option, quarterback power, triple option, all those elements. I fully believe that they did. Quarterback draw has been the play that has killed Montana more than any other play in this rivalry up until this week. I agree. I believe him when he says that.
Yes.
And he said it was maybe it's an excuse or whatever. I agree with. I believe him when he says it. But on the other hand, who's Montana's best offensive player besides Dalton Sneed? Sammy Kim.
That was your Burn Street Bistro Burn of the Week.
Very good.
Thank you, Burn Street. Sammy Kim is one of, if not the best offensive player, right?
For sure.
There was no injury report. Sammy Kim was listed on the depth chart. So when you see him out on a scooter, Montana State did not know that he was out until game time. Bobby Hauck found out on Friday night. I would love to know who or how or why, but he did. And I will say it was news in Bozeman, because people at the bars, people out downtown Friday night, everybody was talking about how Troy Anderson wasn't going to play. So I'm not sure where that leak came from. I'm not sure if Bobby Hauck had a real source or not. But regardless, even if you did spend so much time preparing for it, you obviously did not prepare for the other elements, because what Montana State did on offense was not. They ran the same game plan they ran against Northern Colorado. Fly sweep, wide receiver reverses, and then gas you up the middle. They didn't use Travis Johnson against Northern Colorado. They hardly used Troy Anderson against Northern Colorado. So it's not as. So what I'm saying is, even if you did spend an inordinate amount of time preparing for it, and it's a different style, he just straight up admitted he got out coached by 100%. Not having an adjustment.
100%.
Like if you don't have something you can adjust, when you got Dante Olson and you can't adjust to inside zone and counter, I don't know what to tell you. You got to be able to adjust on the fly.
Here's a little bit more sound for you from Bobby Hauck about Troy Anderson.
Not having Troy Anderson, did that force you to have to change things on the fly, or did you just kind of go with what you had planned to do?
I think it's more about practice time, Greg. They have certain things they do with Troy, and obviously to stop their offense, we had to spend a lot of practice time on that. So we probably didn't get enough work on the stuff we saw today.
again, I buy this, okay? You spent all this time preparing for a thing that never happened, and that really hurts your team. I get that. But also understand what is being said here. We were the worse off because the best player that either team has didn't play for their team. That's insane. That's insane. And by the way, this was something that Jeff Choate also sort of tacitly acknowledged. Like the fact that he wasn't there and they didn't know he wasn't there made the game plan a very different deal. Okay? And so that is real, and yet it's so bizarre to sit here and go, oh, let's see, the best player of your team ain't going to be there, and that's the thing that's going to propel you to one of the biggest victories in the history of the rivalry. I mean, that is crazy in a certain way, even though I do think that there's some tractability to that.
After this, we're going to tell you why Montana State may have been, for this singular game, better off without Troy Anderson.
It is the Montana Football Hour, and it is presented by our friends over at Lithia Ford. Right now, it's 0% for 72 months on the 2019 Ford F-150. The Ford F-150 makes tough tasks look easy, whether it's working on the job or heading out on a weekend of recreation. Check out the all-new Ranger, tested under more extreme conditions than you will likely ever encounter. Set a date for your next adventure. Your Ranger is ready to get you there. Lithia Ford, across from Super Walmart on Brooks, has a huge inventory of used cars and trucks. Visit lithiafordmissoula.com for more information. Search new and used inventory, financing specials, and get yourself in a Lithia Ford today. Lithia Ford is an official sponsor of the Montana Grizzlies and Utel Nuanez Montana Football Hour.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey, it's Coulter, and I'm here with Catherine from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident or need help dealing with the insurance companies, you should give The Advocates a call. They can tell you if you have a case right over the phone.
That's right. It doesn't cost anything to call, and we'd be happy to talk to you and assess your situation. You don't want to have to deal with contacting the insurance companies and setting up a claim. We can do that for you. We take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give The Advocates a call, 406-640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. You deserve The Advocates.
Thank you for making Polaris America's best-selling off-road brand. During the Polaris Great American Thank You event, finance flow 2.99%, rebates go as high as $3,500. Live life wide open. High-performance racing. Tackle everything. Mountains to mud, the legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or elevate your adventure with the versatile Polaris General. Now is the time to get the best deals on America's best-selling off-road lineup with financing as low as 2.99%, APR for 36 months, and rebates up to $3,500 during the Polaris Great American Thank You at Church Polaris, 2904 West Broadway, Highway 8 in Steelers. Get to Church Polaris on Saturday, December 7th, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the 7th annual snow day. Sales is one day only, Saturday, December 7th. Rebate valid in U.S. for 12/31/19 on subject to credit approval. Offer carried by model. Always wear a helmet. Never.
Hey there, Missoula. Mark Moss from Tell Us Something, inviting you to join us for an evening of live storytelling at the Wilma, December 10th at 7 p.m. 8 storytellers take the stage to share their true personal stories from memory on the theme Tipping Point. We again welcome American Sign Language interpreters who will sign for our deaf friends in the Missoula community. Get your tickets now at the Top Hat Box Office, Rockin' Rudy's, or LogJamPresents.com. December 10th, 7 p.m. at the Wilma, Tipping Point Story. See you there.
This is Tom Skerritt for the Portland Project. Each year, nearly 2 million children die from preventable diseases. Each day, 30,000 people die from hunger. 500 each hour are children. The Borgen Project is turning this around. We need your help. To learn more, go to BorgenProject.org. At BORGEN Project.org.
To tell us, 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Hey, boys and girls, welcome back to the Montana Football Hour, presented by Lithia Ford of Missoula. It's Tutel Nuanez, 1029ESPN.com is the website. 1029 ESPN Radio is the radio station. SWX Montana Television is the television station. Coming up in 10 minutes, Greg Seitz was with us last week. He's the athletic director of Jacksonville State. He's also the commissioner of the FCS Playoff Selection Committee. So we're going to look forward a little bit into the playoff world and take a look with both Montana and Montana State having first-round buys and how they came to that and the process that took place over the 18 hours after football got done on Saturday. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris Studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. And on Saturday, December 7th, it's their 7th annual snow day, one day only, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Get there. It's the biggest sale of the entire year, one day only, Kurtz Polaris. Coulter, okay. I got a couple of things in here from Bobby Houck. We also have some more sound from Mitch Brott, so we'll see what we can get to here. But I know you had a couple of things more that you wanted to say just in general and think, I mean, there's endless numbers of thoughts to have about this football game.
Oh, man, we could do this for 10 hours this week. No doubt.
We will. That's how much time we've got.
I want to so there. I thought that the one flaw of the questions as David just said in our ear, we actually only have 6 hours. Because reminder, we're taking Thanksgiving off.
Happy Thanksgiving.
I will say
Thursday
this: if
Friday.
everybody out there that's feeling good about this game, awesome. For everybody out there that's feeling bad about this game, just think of this: both Montana schools are in the playoffs. That's great. Both Montana schools got buys. That's the first time that's happened since, I don't know. I don't think that they've both gotten first-round buys since I moved back to Montana 10 years ago. And more importantly, we all get to spend Thanksgiving with our families, and I don't have to cover a story. I mean, you have any idea how mad my mother has been at me while I'm sitting on her couch reporting firing and hiring stories on Thanksgiving? I mean, it is just so bad for the family dynamic when you're just sitting in the corner on the computer. Regardless, I think that the one flaw in the press conference was the questions about Troy Anderson were asked in the galvanization format. Did the guys go win one for the Gipper? Did everybody play harder because they didn't have Troy Anderson? I think that there's a certain element of that, certainly. But I also think that Troy Anderson is this crazy double-edged sword because he's the best player in the league. And he can do everything. But is it actually the best thing for your organization for him to actually try to do everything? I think the fact that he has reached the point of physically not being able to play in this game is one of the downsides to it. But the other thing is that as the season moves along, Troy Anderson is the only player I can think of in the FCS that when he's in the game, everybody knows what Montana State's offense is going to do, and you still can't stop it, but teams have started to stop it a little bit more. And that's how he tweaked that shoulder against UC Davis. He's in there as a Wildcat quarterback. I mean, they sent a run stunt, and he gets tackled by 4 or 5 different guys, and he gets hit hard, and it makes their offense a little bit more predictable. And so I guess what I'm saying is I think that you remove him, and it's a twofold advantage. One, the opponent has prepared for this guy a bunch. Now he's out, so a part of their game plan is all for naught, and the practice time wasted, all that. That's one part. But the other thing is, I think that I don't mean this as a slight to Troy Anderson individually whatsoever, but Troy Anderson, the entity, is a distraction because you have to try to figure out how to get him touches and get him in the game all the time. And why wouldn't you? And it's a good thing to have, and he's the best player on the field. But how much more settled in did Tucker Rovig look taking all 76 snaps in the game? He didn't have to throw the ball hardly at all, but he also wasn't jittery or nervous. He had one really bad throw on a deep ball, but other than that, he did not have. He
also missed what should have been the second touchdown of the game.
Totally, but he also didn't have the bubble screen where he threw it into the 12th row.
But you want to know why? To me, Coulter, not because he played the whole game, because he threw the number of passes he should be throwing every year, or every week. 13, half the number he's thrown. Even when Troy Anderson has been there, an ironic reality.
Totally. But what I'm saying is, like, Troy Anderson's an amazing splash player. And if you're going to play him on both sides of the ball, that's all he really has the ability to be, is a splash type guy. But Daniel Hardy played great. He had a sack. I mean, there was not really that much drop off between Daniel Hardy and Troy Anderson. Again, Troy Anderson's going to get you more splash plays. He's going to get you the 2 or 3 tackles. But Daniel Hardy was sound and solid at the Sam linebacker spot. And not having Troy Anderson on offense gave Montana State the ability to what we've been saying all along. I never thought that they should have been playing Troy Anderson all sorts of crazy ways at Wildcat quarterback. Play him at tailback. You hand him the ball. But that's what they were able to do even without him. turn around and hand the ball to Isaiah Ifanse and Logan Jones. And that's how they should have used Troy Anderson the whole year, too. That's what I've been saying. Like, I love the diversity of Montana State's offense. The fly sweeps, all the motions, the wildcat. It's great. It's interesting for a guy that loves ground and pound football like I do. It's great. But run power 50 times a game when you've got Lewis Kidd and Taylor Tuliasosovo and Mitch Brott. And that's what they did, and that's why they dominate.
I mean, and here's the thing that I don't understand, man. This is what I've been saying. You just answered your own question. You said, if you have Troy Anderson available, you have to figure out ways to get him the ball. Well, it's not that difficult. Let him be a running back, and then occasionally hand him the football. Like that's just what you do. And why it's always got to be the Wildcat thing, because he played quarterback last year, I don't understand. I don't understand it at all. I can't imagine that him being, a running back is too big in terms of the scheme and trying to learn all the plays and everything. Maybe, I don't know. But going both directions is a very hard thing to do. But again, the power that you saw, the physically overmatching of an opponent that Montana State imposed up front, starting with Mitch Brott and Lewis Kidd and everybody else, frankly, why in the world would you not run it 62 times every single Saturday? I was reminded in no uncertain terms that this is a very, very physical team, and they physically dominate almost every week, if not every week. So then just do that. Stop throwing the football 26 times. Throw it 13 times and blow teams away.
Play Mitch Brott.
There's no words for that, man. It's great. It's something that you kind of just dream of all season. You know deep down that's something you want to see, and so when you actually live it, you don't really know how to experience it. Yeah, midway through the third quarter, I could feel him breaking, and it's a great moment to feel. It's nothing to really describe that. It's like one of the best feelings ever to move someone from point A to point B against their will. Something I always try to strive for.
Yep, and they did it all day long.
We'll talk about this game extensively a little bit in the second hour and also all throughout this shortened week. But a shocking, surprising, and very, very memorable Cat Cruise Saturday in Bozeman on this last week.
We'll come get back to this in the next hour, but at the top of the hour, we're going to go to Greg Seitz from Jacksonville State. He's the athletic director. He's also the committee chair for the selection committee of the FCS playoffs. The playoff field is set. 4 Big Sky Conference teams are seeded teams, including both the Montana schools. We'll ask him how they got to those spots and what the conversations were. So we'll join him right after this. Hey, at the Silver Slipper, it's all about great food, tasty beverages, and their urge to have a good time. Whether you're looking for an affordable family meal or a late-night game of poker, the Silver Slipper has what you're looking for. Right now, the Silver Slipper is your football headquarters, a free shuttle to every home Grizz game, 56 televisions to watch sports on, drink specials every day, a full liquor store, Tarantino's Pizzeria, and the friendliest staff in town. Silver Slipper has all you need to watch your favorite games. Visit thesilverslipperlounge.com for more info. Stop by today to see why the Silver Slipper is one of Montana's best-kept secrets across the street from Super Walmart on Brook. Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, ooh, pump it up.
Hey, what a great idea. I'll stop by Town Pump and pick up some Pepsi and Mountain Dew to bring home to the family. 1 liters are buy 2, get 1 free. And 12-pack Pepsi products are only $4.99. Town Pump, quick, easy, and right down the road.
Town Pump, right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
If you're looking for a charming neighborhood hideaway, come into Katie O'Keefe's. Located in the corner of the Stevens Center, Katie's has an inviting atmosphere with ample parking in a location that's easy to get to and hard not to love. With drink specials every night of the week, including Tequila Tuesdays and Whiskey Wednesdays, offering $3 premium cocktails. Katie O'Keefe's is the welcoming, warm hangout you've been looking for. Come in to Katie O'Keefe's, where the drinks are always cold and the people are always friendly.
Are you interested in putting solar panels on your roof? You want the latest on Montana's renewable energy policy? The Montana Renewable Energy Association is the leading voice for renewable energy education and advocacy in Montana. From community-based clean energy events to advocating at the Montana legislature, they work to ensure Montana's future, powered by the sun, wind, and earth. Find out more about MREA and join as a member by visiting montanarenewables.org or calling 406-214-9405. Bethel Community Church offers a free clothes closet that is open to the public each Tuesday. There are literally thousands of new and gently used items for the entire family in virtually all sizes. There's a good selection of cold weather clothing as well as casual, dress, and professional clothing, shoes, coats, and more. People are invited to take whatever they need. Call Bethel Community Church for more information at 721-2780 or visit www.bethelmissoula.com.
If you are hurt or disabled, you may be entitled to benefits from an insurance company or Social Security. I'm Chris Helmer, an attorney at Clark Fork. Our Missoula firm specializes in worker compensation, personal injury, and Social Security disability. There are many unknowns when injured or disabled. The other side is fighting hard. You should too. Call Clark Fork Law 728-0168 for a free consultation or visit clarkforklaw.com. Again, 728-0168.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hey, how are you doing? Here's some sports news. The 119th Cat Grizz football game was one of the most lopsided in history. From the opening kickoff to the final gun, Montana State was completely overwhelming in a 48-14 rout of the Montana Grizzlies. With Troy Anderson sidelined due to injury, a dominant Cat offensive line still bulldozed the way to 382 rush yards and 6 scores.
Isaiah Ifanse rushed for 171 yards on 21 carries and had 3 touchdowns in just his second game back from injury. And Logan Jones, a Kalispell native, also cleared the century mark for MSU with 121 yards on the ground and another score.
On the other side of the ball, MSU was also dominant. Montana fumbled on its first offensive play, setting up the first MSU touchdown, and Grizz didn't pick up a first down until their 4th possession of the game, at which time it was already 17-0. Montana was held to 46 rush yards, much of which was due to the 6 sacks Dalton Sneed incurred as MSU exploited the Grizz offensive line. Ultimately, Dalton Sneed went 20 of 34 for 195 yards and no touchdowns. He did have 1 interception. Marcus Knight had both Montana's touchdowns, taking his total on the season to 21.
And finally, both the Cats and the Grizz into the playoffs. Montana, the number 6 seed, and will play host to the winner of Southeastern Louisiana and Villanova. Montana State, they're the 5, and they await Albany Central Connecticut State winner. Both games will be December 7th, kickoff 1 p.m.
ESPN Sports Center is presented by Clark Fork.
Welcome back, boys and girls. Hour number 2. The regular season has come to a close, which means the best season is out there in front of everybody. It's Tutel and Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, December 7th. It's a Saturday. It's their 7th annual snow day, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Get a free lunch and get every Christmas present for everyone on your list and save a ton of money doing it at Kurtz Polaris. If you missed anything in the first hour of the Montana Football Hour, it's available on the podcast. The podcast available wherever you get your podcast, and it is there next to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. We go now to the Regich Brothers RV phone line, and we welcome back to the show the athletic director from Jacksonville State, who is also the commissioner of the FCS selection committee, the chairman there, Greg Seitz. Greg, thanks so much for being with us once again. We wanted to know what was happening on the front end. Now we want to know what's happening on the back end, but thanks so much for being back with us.
No, I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
You bet. Now, Greg, I mean, a crazy day, and obviously within the context of the state of Montana and Montana State both ending up with a seed, and fully four of the 8 seeded teams that are going to get a bye are Big Sky Conference teams. What in general led the committee to sign it such a sort of a strong sort of strength of teams and schedule to those Big Sky teams that did get those seeds?
Yeah, I think it was pretty obvious all football season that the Big Sky was going to be really, really strong. And, there's a lot of parity in the Big Sky this year. And I think that was evident by those teams basically beating up on each other there. So when you look at the win-loss record, it was just pretty evident that those teams were, the four really, really good teams. They all deserved to bye.
When you're breaking down the resumes of each, Sac State played 2 FBS, but also played an NAIA. Montana State each just played the 1 FBS. Weaver State played 2 FBS, but no down games. So when you're weighing just the schedules of each of the Big Sky Conference teams, do you just throw the non-FCS games out, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it is. So the non-Division I games, basically they're almost like you won't play those games. So the committee, we don't even look at the results of the games or anything at all. Now, if they suffered a loss, it would be very detrimental to those teams, but they're expected to win those. And then we do take into consideration if they're playing up and playing an FBS opponent. There's never a good thing is a loss. Right, a loss is not a good thing most of the time, but it does give the committee some comparative data. If it's a 7-point game, or and certainly we had 3 FBS wins across the division this year. And I think those teams ended up, those really came into play as we were looking at the field and also in seeding. Central Arkansas, that was really, the committee felt like that FBS win over a really good Western Kentucky team. That's kind of what got them up in the seed for this tournament.
When you look at the Big Sky, it's really fascinating because all 4 teams finished with 9-3 records. Like you say, you take the Southern Oregon win for Sac State out. That's an 8-win Sac State team, but still a team that shared the conference title. And of those 12 cumulative losses, 6 were to FBS. The other 6 were 5 to Big Sky teams, and then a 6th to North Dakota, Montana State's other league loss that wasn't a league win for North Dakota. We'll get into that in a little bit. But when you look at the head-to-heads, though, Sac State takes apart both the Montana schools, but then gets handled by Weaver State. Weaver State handles Sac State, but then gets destroyed by Montana and does not play Montana State. Montana State gets beat handily by Sac State, but then destroys Montana. So how do you weigh the head-to-heads?
Yeah, so, we just end up, as we're looking through the seed process, and we basically just weigh exactly what you're saying. We do have a few other tools that are available. We released the SRS rankings yesterday. Once we release the full bracket, we look at our what we call our RAC, which is our Regional Advisory Committee. So for the West RAC, that includes the Southland and the Big Sky teams. So we have 4 athletic directors who are on that West RAC. And each week, for the last 6 weeks, they've been going in and ranking those teams in that RAC. And they also included North Dakota, who was an independent. So as we took the West RAC, looked at our SRS, strength of schedule. So it's a very, very narrow. Obviously, head-to-head is one of the things that we look at, but just from the scenarios that you just mentioned, it was crazy out in the Big Sky this year with everybody just beating up on everybody.
Greg Seitz joining us. He's the athletic director at Jacksonville State and is the chair of the selection committee for the FCS playoffs. And Greg, specifically with that Montana State game, I think it was one of the games that a lot of people thought in the top 10 could go in a couple of different ways. I know a couple other top 10 teams ended up actually losing on Saturday outside of that game, but not just the win that Montana State had, but the dominant fashion in which they won. Was there any danger of Montana not getting a seed after losing the way they lost?
No, there really wasn't. So we do a top 10 committee ranking for the last 6 weeks, and I can't tell you specifically where Montana was headed into the Montana State game. What I can tell you, though, is despite that loss, you can see where they ended up, where the committee felt like that they ended up with that national seed. So it was a game that certainly was very important to us and to the whole seed process. But that loss really it didn't affect where they were ranked. The committee still felt like they were one of the best 8 teams, and I think we showed that where we finished with their rankings.
Montana and Montana State have never played each other in the playoffs, and the only way that'll happen this year is if it's for a national championship, which, that's what I'm holding out for here, Greg. That's what I want to see. But is there any consideration given to, like, 2 rivalry schools, whether it's Montana State, or others, that are both into a playoff scenario and where they're ranked to sort of avoid that scenario at all? Or is it all just where you think they should be? If they played each other in the first round, then so be it.
Yeah, so that's really a 2-part question. So the first thing the committee does is we're going to rank the best 8 teams, regardless of conference affiliation or anything at all. So we're going to set those top 8 teams how the committee feels like that they should be ranked. So we want to reward who we think are the best 8 teams, regardless of conference affiliation. So once we set those first 8 games, now when we get into our first round games, now we have a different set of rules and policies when we get into the bracketing side. So on the bracketing side, we have rules that we must follow, and it's not only for the FCS football championship. This includes baseball, softball, every other championship except men and women's basketball. So our rules are: if you're within 400 miles of driving to a school, we're going to pair you up. It does it for a couple of things. We try to limit the number of flights, obviously because of cost. But secondly, on Thanksgiving weekend, we understand how difficult it is for the fans to get to the opponents. So that's the basis for our regional geographical bracketing process. And so we're going to bracket those teams in based on drivable distance. Now, this year in the first round, you'll notice we had 5 teams that are able to drive, but then we knew we had 3 flights that we had to put together. And then what we'll do is we're going to pair the teams up, but we're not going to place them in a 1 through 8 seed until we're going to say, okay, if in either one of these schools, if they win, can they drive to one of those 8 seeds? Again, to help limit the flights and to help with the regional side. So that's why you see like North Dakota could drive to North Dakota State. So that's why they're paired up into that area. And we'll go down through the process, just really try to limit the number of flights, and if we can 100 miles, that's how we're going to pair you up with the second round opponents if either one of those teams in the first round can drive.
The way I voted in my final FCS stats top 25, I had the top 6 exactly how you guys had it. I think that then 7 and 8 were probably tough decisions for the committee. So South Dakota State getting the number 7 seed over a Northern Iowa team that ended the season ranked ahead of them. How much of the head-to-head where South Dakota State took Northern Iowa apart 2 weeks ago and a 38-7 win went into that? And how did you determine South Dakota State as the number 7 seed?
Yeah, so, it was really close when we were talking about those final city teams. And when you looked at, at South Dakota State, they played one of the best conferences, and they did have a head-to-head win over some of the other teams that we were considering as a seed. Even though they had the 3 losses, remember it was a 12-game year. And when you looked at UNI, it was really close when we were talking about them for the final seed. The committee just didn't feel like they had that signature win to put them in the top 8. They do play again in one of the tough conferences, but they were 0-3 against other teams that did receive a bye from the Missouri Valley. So that's really, I think, going 0-3 against those other teams that were seeded was the determining factor.
And the number 8 seed Central Arkansas was a similar situation in the Southland, right? I mean, Central Arkansas tied for the league title with a 7-2 record, but Nichols was also there at 7-2, and they beat Central Arkansas head-to-head. Southeastern Louisiana also beat Central Arkansas, even though they finished at 6-3. So what was the deciding factor to give Central Arkansas the number 8 seed?
The committee really felt like that FBS win over a really good Western Kentucky team, who is bowl eligible with 7 wins, and it was by far we felt like the best FBS win of any team. So they were co-champions of their conference, and they had a higher strength of schedule when compared to the other teams that we were talking about. And they were 1-2 against the field with a win over Austin Peay, who was the OVC champion. So that's really how Central Arkansas ended up with the 8th.
Greg Seitz, the athletic director at Jacksonville State. He's also the chairman of the selection committee for the FCS playoffs. Greg, we certainly appreciate it. The only thing I think you guys could have done better is I don't understand how NDSU gets the 1 seed. I'm not even sure that's a team that deserves a bye myself, but that's just one man's opinion. I guess that's why I'm on the outside.
Only 33 wins in a row.
Yeah, no big deal there. Hey, Greg, we really appreciate the time, though. Really looking forward to the tournament. It's going to be an exciting one. I know around the state of Montana, people are pumped up to have both teams in the top 8, so that's great. We appreciate it, and I understand you'll be in the state of Montana in a couple of weeks to take in a playoff game.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Although I found out earlier it's 64 degrees today in Alabama, so I heard that you got your first snow today. So I may have to reevaluate that. I didn't know you had that much snow, but I'm really looking forward to my first trip. I'll be there next weekend for round 2. Serving as the NCAA site rep for the Montana game. So I'm looking forward to my first experience at Grizzly Stadium.
Well, drive slow. That's my recommendation to you when you get here, okay? That's the key to the whole thing. Greg, we look forward to it. We'll look forward to having you here in a couple of weeks as well, okay?
Thank you so much.
You bet. Greg Seitz, thank you. Jacksonville State Athletic Director, the chairman of the committee. A lot of good stuff there and plenty of things to get through. It would have been the likelihood that you get the Cats and the Grizz in a national championship in this particular season, pretty unlikely. I think I could say that without going out on too huge a limb. You never know. But North Dakota State, any team that isn't North Dakota State in the national championship is pretty unlikely. That's all I'm saying.
It is.
So it's not about the Cats and the Grizz, it's about NDSU. Point being, it would be so if they were 4-5 instead of 5-6, they would be playing each other after one win each.
No.
Yes. Is
that true?
That is true.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Because Sac State and Montana State will play. That's
now,
right.
Sacramento State absolutely deserves to be a 4. Okay, I'm not saying that they should have been the 6. This is not about what should have been or anybody getting it wrong. All I'm saying is, if they're both one slot better, they are playing each other in the national quarterfinal if they take care of business after, in their first game at home after the bye. That would be, I don't know what that would be. Maybe the universe comes to a close at that point. I don't know how it, but it would be remarkable. In this scenario, they both got to go the distance, and then for sure the universe comes to a close if that actually transpires. So we'll obviously look forward to all that, but we appreciate Greg being on with us, and we will look forward to. We have some more sound from Bobby Hauck that I thought was. I actually still don't know really what to make of it at this point, so we'll get to that a little later on in the show as well, particularly in the context of the postseason and playoffs and all that. Next, though, boys and girls, we got a bunch of state champions. Coulter and I made it over to Butte, got the second half of the Butte-Bozeman State AA championship game and a bunch of other state championship games around the state on Saturday. We'll break all of it down for you right after this. Alpine Touch has been part of the fabric of Montana for more than 60 years. Decades ago, Russell Street started selling his touch of magic in whitefish. Years later, Alpine Touch's all-purpose seasoning remains a favorite. It's tailgating season, and there's no better way to spice up your grill before a Grizz game than with Alpine Touch. Go to alpinetouch.com now and use the checkout code ESPN10 for a 10% discount on your order. Alpine Touch is here to keep your mouth watering all football season. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
Gather your friends and family and join the Montana Club for their annual Thanksgiving feast, featuring succulent oven-roasted turkey or tender, juicy prime rib, and all the mouth-watering sides. And don't forget the pie. Enjoy home-style pecan, pumpkin, or pumpkin cheesecake to top off your meal. Thanksgiving feast starts at 11 a.m., and they'll also offer their full menu as well. Open 8 to 7 Thanksgiving Day. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Selway Armory on Black Friday is the one store you have to visit to save huge on guns, ammo, and accessories. Check out Selway Armory's insert, Thanksgiving edition of the Missoulian before Black Friday, all of the unbelievable inventory and savings they have in store for you. Put Selway Armory on your schedule and get there this Black Friday and Saturday, the sale of the year. Get to the store at 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6 behind IHOP on North Reserve. Selway Armory's Black Friday sale. Shop local, save money, shoot more.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Americans waste 3.8 million gallons of Italy every single day. Idling for more than 10 seconds actually uses more fuel and produces more emissions than stopping and restarting. The next time you're stopped for more than 10 seconds at the train, getting coffee, or picking your child up from school, please turn your vehicle off.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez. Here is your ESPN Sports Center. The 119th Cat Grizz football game was one of the most lopsided in history. From the opening kickoff to the final gun, Montana State was completely overwhelming in a 48-14 rout of the Montana Grizzlies. But Troy Anderson, sidelined due to injury, a dominant Cat offensive line still bulldozed away to 382 rush yards and 6 touchdowns.
Isaiah Ifanse rushed for 171 yards on 21 carries and had 3 touchdowns in just his second game back from injury. Logan Jones also cleared the century mark for MSU with 121 yards on the ground and another score. Cats rushed for 382 yards, the most in Cat Grizz history.
On the other side of the ball, MSU was nearly as dominant. Montana fumbled on his first offensive play, setting up the first Cat score. The Grizz didn't pick up a first down until their 4th possession, at which point the game was already 17-0. Montana was held to just 46 yards rushing, much of which was due to the 6 sacks that Dalton Sneed incurred. Sneed went 20 of 34 for 195 yards, no touchdowns and 1 interception. Marcus Knight had both Montana scores, takes his season total to an amazing 21 on the year.
Montana, number 6 seed in the playoffs. They get a first-round bye. They await the winner of Southeastern Louisiana and Villanova. The Cats got the 5 seed. They await the winner of Albany, Central Connecticut State.
Let's talk about state championships at the high school level for a minute, shall we? It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula. Saturday, December 7th is their 7th annual snow day. The biggest sale of the entire year anywhere. Go there, one day only. Get every Christmas present that you need for everybody on your list, including yourself, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Kurtz Polaris. If you would like to listen live, maybe you're out of the market, maybe it's just easier for you, 1029ESPN.com. You go there, you listen to the stream on the Listen Live tab. It's available thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. Stick around with us. We are going to get to, in this, to kind of towards the end of the show, some more sound for you and more prospectus of the 2 schools of Montana State coming off of that Cat Grizz game Saturday and into a bye, which I think both schools are thrilled to be having for 2 very different reasons, but both probably need very much. And also what it's going to look like for them. We'll also set up for you how the bracket's set up, who they will be playing, the potential matchup there. So we'll get you to all that. But before that, we got to talk about some state championship football, Coulter. It's our Prep Extra segment. It's brought to us by the Farmers State Bank. Farmers State Bank, your Montana bank since 1907. And you and I did the show in Bozeman on Friday night, jumped in the rig, drove back over the hill, had to grab a little bit of food because, it's been a long day. Got to keep the fires burning. And then we went in to Naranche Stadium. And Coulter, when we walked into Naranche Stadium, just after halftime at that point, we stepped back in time, man. We were standing there in front of, 8,000 plus people at a high school stadium. And if you've been to Naranche Stadium, you kind of know how it's set up, but it's so cool because Butte, as we know, is built on the side of a hill. And it's a pretty significant angle. And so if you're going to have anything flat, there's going to be the uphill side of it looking down at everything and the downhill side of it sort of looking up at everything. And so you have this sort of asymmetry of sidelines, but there's still bleachers on both sides, people standing room only, several people deep, and on top of like the press box. They're standing on top of the bars. It was like Wrigley Field. People on the apartments across the street trying to look into this thing. Every possible person that could have been there seems like was there. And it was 14-14 a great football game. And then Bozeman ends up literally running away with it. But Coulter, before we get into the game itself, just the experience of being in Butte, Montana, in that historic stadium in that historic town, in a place that still is it's a bunch of fighters, and I mean that in the best sense, of people who are tough-minded people who are going to sit there and do it, and where the high school sports means so very much. When you talk about Bozeman, when you talk about Missoula, anybody who's obviously got kids playing all that, but you're talking about an entire community that's a significant one in the state of Montana in terms of its size and stuff. rallies around them, rallies around the Butte Bulldogs and what they're up to. It was unbelievable, and it was such a wonderful night to be there and to be in that stadium, in that place.
The best way I could describe, like, Helena is Montana's smallest big town. Butte is Montana's biggest small town.
Great.
Butte is just like the other small towns in Montana, even though there's still 30,000 people that live there. It's nowhere close to as big as it once was, when it was 150,000 people in a gigantic metropolis. By Western standards, it was one of the biggest cities west of the Mississippi.
Correct.
At the turn of the century, and there was more money and more resources and industry and all that, but that pride and that sense of place and that, true just identifying with where you're from remains in Butte more than perhaps anywhere else in the state of Montana. And we know Montanans are as proud as any people in the United States of America in terms of where we're from. And so that part was cool. It was a very interesting experience to watch Bozeman, the rival, run the ball down Butte's throats and watch just the deflation of the atmosphere. Because when we walked into the stadium, we didn't get there till halftime. It was 14-14. Pandemonium. It was, everybody was going crazy. It was loud. It was awesome. And then touchdown drive after touchdown drive after touchdown drive. And Bozeman just took the air out of the stadium. But all that said, congratulations to Bozeman. I think they were certainly the better team. Butte went undefeated leading up to the state championship game, and they won the West, which was the harder of the two sides of the bracket. But that said, Bozeman thoroughly dominated the line of scrimmage in both their semifinal and final games. I got to watch both of them live, and Asher Croy, he's going to get all the headlines. Future Grizz running back, he rushed for 333 yards and 3 touchdowns on 33 carries. A lot of great symmetry there.
Yeah, no doubt.
But his offensive line deserves a ton of credit. I thought there was at least 3 kids that, and I apologize for not having a roster in front of me, but anybody out there that follows Bozeman Hawk football, I'm sure you'll know the numbers. Number 66, number 69, number 72 were great. They're awesome. I thought that they really paved the way for Asher Croy.
And, and it was both of them too, because Asher is by high school running back standard gigantic.
He's 6'1", 215 pounds.
He's a big person anyway, but you're talking about a high school guy who's a runner of the football. That's big, and so he had great lanes to running. And also, in the event that there were kids coming up, to make a tackle, multiple times it ain't happening. Just put a stiff arm there, and you're just going to the ground. It's still so interesting, Coulter, isn't it? Even in varsity football, especially in a place where there's again just so few people, such a rural state like Montana, even at the AA level, the disparity between the kids who are heading into adulthood and the kids who have not gotten there yet. Right. And I mean, you get some kids, they're like, everybody comes at different sizes. I understand that. But you also have
physical maturity.
You got some boys that are basically men, and you got some boys that are still boys playing on the same field together. Definitely. And even when you're in the right place and you make the right read and you go downhill and you fire your gun and all that kind of stuff, I mean, Asher Croy maybe not going to be taken down by you, and that's just sort of the physical imbalance that it is, and it's both directions. But you're right, when you have a couple of kids who can impose their will in that way, I mean, it was an interesting harbinger to what would take place less than 24 hours later. I mean, it was the second half of the Butte Bozeman game was the entire game of the Cat Grizz game.
I mean, Asher Croy rushed for over 200 yards, and a great story for that young man, because his father, Guy Croy, longtime head coach at Huntley Project, basically forced out as the head coach there. They decided to not stay in the community. They instead transferred to Bozeman. Guy Croy was on Levi Westgy's staff. He's helping out. That takes a lot to be a perennial state championship contender at Huntley Project and swallow your pride and go be an assistant so that your son can get a look at the top level. And Guy Croy played for the Grizz in the 1990s, so he knows what it takes. And I interviewed Guy after the game, and sorry we don't have that sound ready right now, but we can get it to you later on this week. But he talked about just the sacrifice that it took, but also just the opportunity that there was and how vindicating it was for his son to have the best game of his career in the state championship game. I mean, Huntley Project had lost 3 state championship games under Guy Croy in recent years. And then to get the state title as a coach, have his son lead Bozeman to a state title, is a good moment. It's a cool moment. And Asher Croy, he told a reporter earlier this season that he wears number 34 because he idolizes Chase Reynolds. And I'm not sure that he's got the top end speed that Chase Reynolds has got. And I mean, Chase Reynolds has played in the NFL for 6 years, so it's hard to compare anybody to Chase Reynolds. But he's got some juice and he's got some toughness. And he's going to be, I'll tell you this, if he continues to work hard, Bobby Hauck's going to love it.
Yeah.
Playing for the University of Montana. But it was definitely an interesting experience at Naranche because the atmosphere was so cool, but the atmosphere was also largely deflated because of the way that the Hawks were able to execute. But Bozeman was certainly the better team.
Class A, Miles City, stem to stern. They hosted the state championship. They beat two-time defending state champion runner-up Hamilton the week before. They get Laurel, who beat Dillon on the road. So Laurel, a really good team. And this game, the best team won, and they won going away, 35-7. The final in this football game is the first state championship since 2010 for Miles City, and they did so at home. Carson Hunter, potential college player, their quarterback there, but he was had a very nice game as well. They gave up 3 passing touchdowns. Are you ready? This year, the Miles City defense. I mean, that's unbelievable. So there's a really good football team, and they're the state champions, and there's just no doubt they have been this entire season and proved it again, the best team in Class A.
We've talked a lot since I joined this show about some of the dynasties in Class A and the consistent performers, and that list included Dillon. It included Hamilton in the late 90s, early 2000s, then not Hamilton, and then Hamilton again. Building Central has been right there always. But it's easy to forget Miles City is the dynasty. They are the team in Class A. They had 10 state titles. But they just hadn't won one since 2010, and that was their first one in 10 years then. So maybe a return to dominance for Miles City. We'll see. I don't know what the next group of kids looks like, but I will tell you this. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. I don't want to get into too much, just the erosion of the media industry in Montana, but it is sort of sad to me. And then the newspapers just don't have the ability or resources. This is no shot at the newspapers. I know, having worked in newspapers, they just don't have the ability and resources to cover stuff like they used to. You can't have the full game recaps and box scores all the time because they just don't have the guys to do it. That said, Miles City did not get the coverage in the western part of the state that they probably deserved, and they were sort of this mysterious juggernaut who were just rolling through people and shutting everybody out. I think there was just a perception in the West that the East was just weak and Miles City was going to get theirs when they had to play Hamilton or Dillon or Frenchtown, and that's not the case. They rolled everybody. And I also say, but by the time the quarterfinals and the semifinals and the finals of the playoffs rolled around, then some media started going out there, and there was some videos being tweeted. The Carson Hunter kid's a really good player, man. The quarterback, he's a really good player. I don't know if he's a Division I level talent yet, but he's a college level talent. You can tell when you can see a guy who spins it well enough to play at the college level, whether it's at Carroll or Rocky or whatever. And if you can play at that level in Class A, you're really, really, really good. And he's good, man. He's going to be a kid to keep an eye on. So maybe this is not only just a singular great run by the Cowboys, but also maybe they have a chance to be pretty good going forward too, because he's only a junior.
You know, and within the context of that, it's also worth going back to Butte and mentioning Tommy Mellott. I mean, Tommy Mellott, watching him play, he's a very strong kid. He's not prototypical size for D1 quarterback, but he's big and strong. I don't know if he's going to grow anymore, but he throws a spectacular ball.
Great velocity. He's got a funny release though.
Yeah, but I mean, so does Phillip Rivers, man. So does Reggie Miller. It worked out. I mean, okay.
Yeah, but so many of these coaches are so drunk on the notion that they have to look good.
I mean,
I don't know, man. I've seen some guys with
good.
I've seen some guys with funny releases, and like, I mean, Travis Johnson got moved from quarterback the second day of fall camp. He got funny release. He's never even given a chance to prove he could do it in a game. Who knows? Maybe he could, maybe he couldn't. I don't know. But I mean, Montana State. We'll see where they put him.
But I thought
Tommy Mellott was a Division I caliber athlete and a Division I caliber competitor. Certainly, what we watched. I don't know if he's a Division I caliber quarterback.
I don't either, but I would tend towards that he is. And I saw him put the ball. I saw some anticipation throws, and I saw easily 5 balls, Coulter, that if a college receiver is on the other end of that thing, it's big time plays. I mean, he was throwing the ball early. He had a wide receiver put the ball on him who turned the wrong direction, went over the wrong shoulder for it, where he put it where he needed to in terms of away from the defense and stuff. So again, that's what it is. You kind of deal with that stuff. But I think he's got a great opportunity to be a really good player and potentially a quarterback as well at Montana State. Coulter Class B, Hank Dunn had 3 scores, and Eureka scored 3 times and won their 3rd state title in 4 years, if we're going to keep going with the symmetry thing. 20-6 over Manhattan. This is impressive because Manhattan beat Fairfield, who I think had been kind of the consensus top team in Class B that season. And so Manhattan, to get that win, host this game, and then Eureka to come in and get it done, impressive. I think you see some of the experience, though, of having played in these state championship games and won them their 3rd and 4 years.
And Eureka's starting tailback, who set a school record for rushing yards and rushing touchdowns in a season, he tore his ACL, and Hank Dunn stepped up in his place. Hank Dunn had been a standout in a lot of different other positions, but he stepped up and he had a couple picks, he had a couple rushing touchdowns, and he scored all the points. So congratulations to the Lincoln County Lions. 3 and 4 years is impressive, especially at Class B where your numbers just ebb and flow so much.
Very impressive. And finally, Class C, 8-man behind a group of 12. Count them up, 12 seniors. That is 1.5 times more people than you need to play 8-man, by the way. Fairview, first state championship in school history. They beat Alberton Superior 70-6. I know the scores can get out of hand when you're playing less than 11-man football, but that is still a pretty big margin of victory. But congratulations to Fairview, who rolled through and won their first state championship in history.
12 seniors, which is an amazing number when you're talking about Class C 8-man.
It's truly remarkable.
And Cody Esbeck, he took the opening kickoff, 77 yards for a touchdown. Remember, they only playing on an 80-yard field, so it's like a 100-yard return basically on a real field. And they scored another rushing touchdown. He caught 3 more touchdown passes, so he scored 5 total touchdowns in 3 different ways. Alex Shriver threw 5 total touchdown passes, including 3 to Esbeck, 2 more to Jesse Selting, and then Shriver himself ran for 2 more and returned an interception for 1. So a lot of touchdowns being scored when you score 70 points. But Fairview's had a lot of success for a long time. So I was actually surprised when I was writing this that this was the first state title in school history, because they've had multiple playoff runs. They've lost. I think they lost in the Final Four recently. So they've been right there. And then Class C 6-man, to wrap it all up, the
Garfield County.
Yeah, Garfield County from Jordan beat Webo, the defending state champs, 70-14.
Yep. Impressive. Where Webo, yeah, like you said, the defending state champs, and Webo, perennially in it at the Class C 6-man level. But
they were an 8-man power, and then they had to drop down to 6-man, and that's probably one of the saddest things to me, because I love the little small towns. I love the little rivalries that develop on the High Line, and because of technology and because of so many different factors, so many small towns in Montana are just losing population hand over fist, and Webo having to drop from 8 to 6-man is too bad. And a lot of the co-ops that have sprung up, it's good to maintain the validity and even existence of the football program, but a lot of times then you're completely eliminating age-old rivals. Like Geraldine Highwood is the greatest one and the worst one, because Geraldine and Highwood had one of the great Class C rivalries ever, and now they're a co-op, and non-ironically they're named the Rivals, which I know is just like salt in an open wound for any old-timer that lives in either of those towns.
Right.
But it's that part's too bad. We'll see. I really hope that the dwindling numbers in football across the state don't continue to impact the small towns, but I think it's inevitable.
Farmers State Bank, they bring us the Prep Extra segment every week, and we appreciate them for it. And this was a fun one, heck of a weekend. The Class C, in the high school level, all classifications for the state championships in football.
One more note: this is not a prep thing, but we've had this young lady on the show as when she was a prep star, and it's just worth noting. And we'll probably try to get an interview with her, maybe later on this week or maybe next week, because she's of national repute at this point. Camilla Noe, who's been on this show before, she was our Mattress Firm Student of the Week once upon a time. She was a finalist for the Student of the Year. She ended up going to the University of Portland and not loving it. She was only there for a semester. She transfers back to her hometown. She's from Bozeman, run for Montana State. And she became the first woman in 27 years from the state of Montana to win the Big Sky Cross Country Championship. She advanced to the NCAA Regionals, where she took 5th, and then she advanced to the NCAA Nationals, where she took 40th. And 40th is good enough for All-American honors. So she's the first female cross-country runner to earn All-American honors in more than 20 years. That's pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
And the most impressive part about it is she's only a freshman still.
Yeah. I mean, that is really remarkable. Certainly congratulations to her. Prep Extra segment brought to us by Farmers State Bank. Hey, how do you plan to finance Christmas this year? Forget the high interest credit cards. Don't load it up on a credit card, people. Apply for a holiday loan at Farmers State Bank. Count on fast approval times, low interest, and easy payments OAC. That's Farmers State Bank, helping you do Christmas right. Take a quick break. We'll come back. Back into Cat Grizz next.
It's a rite of passage. That first bank account. Explore the great options for your young adult with a visit to Farmers State Bank online at farmersebank.com or in person at any of our 9 locations in Western Montana. Our checking and savings accounts are designed to fit any lifestyle and budget with the flexibility, innovations, and security today's consumers demand. Start out right with Farmers State Bank or Montana Bank since 1907.
You know what's at stake after a car accident? Not only will you have to deal with pushy insurance companies, auto repair shops, endless doctor's appointments, and dozens of unforeseen problems, but also your normal day-to-day life. I'm Coulter here with Catherine from the Advocates Injury Attorneys, and she knows how hard this can be.
That's right. And with all of that, it can seem tempting to take the quick settlement that the insurance company is offering. But I can tell you from experience that it is not going to be a fair amount. I see it all the time where someone has settled with the insurance company and months later realizes that they still have pain from the accident. And now they're having to pay those bills out of their pocket. I don't want that to happen.
So what should our listeners do, Catherine?
Give us a call and discuss your situation with an attorney. The call is free and we'll gladly talk about your situation with you. If you have a case that we can help with, you will owe us nothing out of pocket. We actually make the insurance company pay for us to help you.
There you have it. Call the Advocate, 406-640-4444, or go online, MontanaAdvocates.com. You deserve the Advocates on your side.
Hi there. It's Les Schwab Tire. Well, more like Les Schwab alignment, and brakes, shocks, wheels, and tires. Now, some tire places don't offer that. They only sell tires. And we're not sure how they sleep at it, because all those services affect things like steering and stopping. That's why we offer more tires to help keep you safe. Stop by or book an appointment at LesSchwab.com. Les Schwab Tire, doing the right thing. 1950.
On Russell, across from the fairground.
Katie O'Keefe's has been a neighborhood favorite in the corner of the Stevens Center for years. But if you haven't been into Katie's lately, come on in and make sure to turn left. Downstairs bar is completely remodeled with one of the biggest, best spaces anywhere in Missoula to watch games, play games, and hang out with all your friends. Katie O'Keefe's is your horse racing simulcast headquarters in Missoula. Come into Katie's and turn left for cribbage, darts, pool, and much, much more. Katie O'Keefe's, where the cocktails are always cold and the people are always friendly.
Get ready for Black Friday with a hot cup of your favorite Florence coffee drink and our hotter Black Friday gift shopping deal. On Black Friday only, buy a $25 gift card and receive a $10 gift card free. If you miss Black Friday, you can still get a great deal. Purchase a $25 gift card and receive a $5 gift card through Christmas Eve. Come to any Florence Coffee location and go to FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
Missoula.
Howdy doody on a Monday. Coming out of a Cat Grizz weekend. Telling you, man, it's the best weekend of the year every year. Just never fails. You said this, Coulter. You were so right about this. You said, here's the difference between Cat Grizz and every other game. If we go to a game and it's 60-0 or 67, which we've seen plenty of times, it's just a snooze fest. It doesn't even matter. This game, 48-14, not close, complete domination. Riveting. 210 Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Go to the Missoula store on Saturday, December 7th. You're going to the playoff game? Go early. Go get some coffee, cinnamon rolls. They got lunch for you as well. You go a little later, 10 to 4. Biggest sale of the entire year, one day only, December 7th at Kurtz Polaris. If you missed anything in the show, check it out on the podcast. Podcast available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also listen on the station website at 1029ESPN.com. The podcast available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Want to remind everybody, short week. It's a great week. It's actually a long week, but it's a long family week. Short work week. 3 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're out Thursday and Friday. So enjoy your long weekend with your family, wherever you are, whatever you're up to. So Get with the people. Get with the people. Here's what we do. I don't know, because some people got family around, some people don't. We got 2 Thanksgiving. A lot of people getting in on the second one, the Friendsgiving. So we had that. I don't know, a week ago. 25 people sitting in a circle singing karaoke, passing the turkey. I'm into it, man. My life now. Did I tell you about my first Filipino Thanksgiving?
Tell me about it.
My aunt, full on, very difficult to understand accent, born, raised, lived in the Philippines forever before moving to the United States. So now, obviously, she's got to have Thanksgiving because she's in the U.S. Walk in, you know what they got? Full fish, head on it fish for Thanksgiving and karaoke in the living room. That was one of my Thanksgivings along the line. And then you know what? It was great.
I think the only thing that could give me instant anxiety is the thought of karaoke at Friends.
Oh, no. Oh, you got to get on that thing.
And then as soon as everybody's like, oh, your turn, you got to go. Dude, that's the moment I hope I choke on my drumstick.
2 hours a day on the microphone in the entire state. One song in front of a couple people you pass out.
Being intentionally gregarious, for lack of a better word, is not I'm not in.
That is a fact. Coulter, let's go back to this game. 48-14, Montana State. We talked, obviously, a ton in the first segment, or the first hour, about this game, the ramifications of it. And we have more thoughts on it, which we're going to share in more sort of both podcast side of things and on this show for the next couple of days. But let's hear a little bit of Bobby Hauck, because he said it's so odd. And this is why I think that my real perception of him in the press conference is just trying to get through it in an affable way. He was actually more prone to answer questions than almost in any press conference I've seen, because I think it's hard to have it just get hammered and embarrassed the way that you do and then come out and be short. That's a really bad look. So I thought that he answered the questions and all that, but I also thought he was self-contradictory at various times because he just didn't even know really what to say. And so when you say, well, it matters, this means everything to them, and maybe we need to take it, more seriously as well, as if you're not taking it seriously, and then people go, well, what's going on? Or is that just a needless shot at the opponent who just beat you or whatever? But then you asked him what I thought was a very apropos question, a reasonable one, and the answer to it was, I'm still trying to figure out, so here you go.
I'm sure your kids are disappointed, so how do you not let this become too big of a thing and move past it?
It'll be a big thing. We won't be moving past it.
Resetting the mindset for the playoffs, though,
it'll be hard to do. I can tell you we're going to be just great next week. We won't.
Here's what's interesting about this. I think I understand what he's doing. We got wrecked. Everybody's going to be down. And for me to sit up here and go, yeah, we're just going to get over it. Even after saying that, that it means everything to them and maybe it should to us. Clearly it does. And he's upset about this, but also to sit there and say, we're not going to get over this. It's going to be difficult to get up for a playoff game. I'd like to tell you that we'll be ready to go. We won't be.
But they don't play. He just said this week.
He did.
And they don't play this week.
That's right. And again, that's why
a blessing. That's the biggest blessing the Grizzlies have.
Having a bye this week, Mass, I really think that if Montana played this week in Missoula,
it's twofold. Right?
It would be a trap game with a capital T.
Maybe, or it
goes the other
be
way.
A way to wipe the slate clean.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. It could be 70-0 too.
Like last year, the Cats won in such an emotional fashion, but that game was such a war.
Yes,
that multiple guys were just out. Like they had to shut down Bryce Dirk, Derek Marks, Tucker Yates the very next week. But they got such a good bad draw because they got the worst team in the bracket in Incarnate Word coming to their house. So they were able to win that game decisively without their best players. But then they had to go to NDSU, so they knew that they had to save those guys up. But Jeff Choate talked about it in his press conference today, and we'll play you that sound later on in the week. But he said, last year we for sure rode the emotional high of our win in Missoula through the next playoff game, and then we crashed.
Yeah.
And when you crash, and then you got NDSU on the horizon, that's how you go 52-10. Here, I can't wait to talk to Coach Hauck again. I know we've pretty much killed Montana on the show, but we should not demean the season that Montana had.
No doubt. This is about
it's a tremendous season.
Yes.
And I think that what he meant, he was trying to get out of it. That was the last question in the press conference. He wanted to, did Denarius McGee had already accidentally stuck his head into the press conference. The Montana State players were standing right there. I mean, it was kind of like curtains. Like everybody was trying to wrap it. And I want to talk to Coach Houck about it again, because I think that I don't want to say what I think he meant, but I want to follow. I want to follow up with him.
Yeah,
because I think what he meant was we're not going to be okay, but not that it's going to kill our mindset for the rest of the year, but rather we're not going to get over it. It's going to be our motivating factor for from henceforth.
Right. As it should be. As it should be. You also asked Jeff Choate about playoff resume. This is before the seeds came out. We didn't know where they would be, if they would get a bye and all that. We thought they would after the way that game went. Here you go.
Though, I mean, you guys have a very good playoff resume. So, I mean, what would you say to the committee just in terms of the case for?
I don't think we need to make a case. I think we're a 9-win Big Sky team that just beat the number 3 team in the country soundly. And so I think that resume will speak for itself.
No doubt. And it did. And they're the number 5 team in the nation, according to the committee, and they have a bye. And congratulations. And again, congratulations to both teams. The seasons that these two teams have been outstanding. This is 2 of the top 6 teams in the United States of America. I mean, that is fantastic. Here's the question, though, that I wanted to finish up with you on today, Colter, regarding this game. Okay? You said we've been killing Montana today. Well, they should be killed today, when it comes to this game and what happened, because they were killed on Saturday.
And they were out-physical, out-efforted, and they did not come ready to play, and that's exactly the issue. They got to delay a game on the first play of the game.
My man. This is what I want to talk to you about. You and I said, of all the things I'm shocked at, this is what I'm shocked at the most from this game. We thought that this game on Saturday was going to be the most fearsome physical fight that you could imagine on a football field. And it simply was not. It was the tough guy taking out the other guy who stood no chance. There was no give and take. There was only give in this football game. And after having watched Montana all season long, and really the Grizzlies crescendoing when you talk about the physicality that they played with, they went away. They went away the same way, if not more, than Weber State went away the week before. And that is the thing that I am still, I don't know how to, well, I understand if Mitch Brott says the greatest thing in the world is moving a person from A to B against their will, and he can do that to you, there's not much in the way of, overcoming that. But the fight, the effort, the readiness to play, there was none of it at any point.
I know, and I was thinking about this because there wasn't, but the Grizz also never stopped trying, which also meant that the I'm trying to not use bad words here. The butt whipping never ended, because you're right, they didn't have the proper level of preparedness. They did not have the proper level of effort, but they didn't also crawl into a hole and go away. They were still sort of fighting. They just never had the momentum on their side, and so it made it so that the whipping went even further. Like, Montana called off the Dogs after they were up 35-3 with 12 minutes to go in the game against Weber State. Montana State whipped them and whipped them and whipped them some more.
There's no calling off the Dogs ever in this game, no matter who's ahead.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why the 60-minute bludgeoning that happened, it could not happen in any other game. Because in any other game, somebody would be trying to mitigate snaps for the playoffs or whatever. I mean, Isaiah Ponce and Logan Jones were the ones getting the carries to run out the clock.
And again, I guess I want to be clear here. When you talk about the players, who this means everything to, I mean, I truly feel bad. I feel bad for every team that loses this game, because I know it means so much to everybody that's playing, and that's the nature of sports, is there's a winner and a loser, and particularly in this game, if you're the loser and you're a kid playing the game, it is so tough to swallow, and this more than most, because you're talking about never having beat Montana State in the case of the seniors, and not even a close game and all of that. And I don't want to say that any individual player came out and phoned it in this game. That did not happen, and I don't want to insinuate that in the least bit. But
they got knocked. They got punched so hard they got knocked on their heels, and they couldn't dig their heels in.
Their head was just swimming the entire game, and there was no chance to sort of rally and then quote unquote fight back. It just wasn't there.
And that's what has to be.
What was amazing.
That has to be the motivation for the Grizz going in the postseason now, because Jesse Sims, Josh Sandry, Colin Bingham, Dalton Sneed, Dante Olson, this group of maligned but proud seniors, this part's over. They will not beat the Bobcats in their career. That's over. The only way they could redefine their legacy, though, is going on the first playoff run Montana's gone on since 2011. Or going back, say they made a run all the way to the national championship, going back to the national championship for the first time in a decade. It's the only way they can redefine. The most savage quote that was given by anybody besides Braden Conkle came from, of all people, the preacher man, Derek Marks. I mean, he's going to be a priest. He's going to the seminary right after he's done with school. He's never said a swear word in his life. And he said, I don't know what's sweeter, knowing that I beat the Grizz 4 times in a row or knowing that they have a bunch of seniors that never beat me.
Mm-hmm. That's what it means. That's what it is.
That's what it means.
And here's what's crazy about this, too. Montana has had an unbelievable a season that they are a year ahead of where their head coach thought they would be, according to their head coach. So by every metric aside from this one game on Saturday, this has been an overwhelming success. And a postseason berth with a bye for the first time in 4 years for Montana. I mean, there should be confetti shot off in that respect. And I think over the course of the next 2 weeks, the emotion and the energy and the excitement will build again. But this is it's unbelievable what this does to the narrative of a season and a team. It's remarkable. And maybe it's too big. I don't know. I'm not.
It's not too big when they're both ranked in the top 10. That's exactly it. I mean, because regardless, take the name off the front of the jersey again. Montana State, they went from we were talking last week on as an 8-4 Cat team get in. A 9-4 Cat team that just destroyed the number 3 team in the country, no matter if that's Villanova, James Madison, or Montana, is in, and it redefines your entire season. I mean, the whole lose big, lose small, win big. Jeff Choate could have had egg on his face for a long time, and instead they won 4 straight, including whipping the Grizz, and now they're into the playoffs, and they're the 5 seed in the playoffs, and it's a better scenario than anybody could have predicted.
Yes, it is.
They were picked to finish 4th or 5th in the league.
That's right.
They're the 5 seed.
That's right. But by the way, there are 4 teams that are seeded. Pretty good week for them. Plenty more to come on this. I have a lot to say about the progression for Montana State, because this game to me has more real significance for the arc that they have than for Montana, but we don't have time anymore.
News, but breaking news as of yesterday, it's not really breaking anymore. Ernest Collins out at Northern Colorado. We'll talk about that and the landscape of the rest of the Big Sky during a short week.
See you tomorrow.
Gather your friends and family and join the Montana Club for their annual Thanksgiving feast, featuring succulent oven-roasted turkey or tender, juicy prime rib, and all the mouth-watering sides. And don't forget the pie. Enjoy home-style pecan, pumpkin, or pumpkin cheesecake to top off your meal. Thanksgiving feast starts at 11 a.m., and they'll also offer their full menu as well. Open 8 to 7 Thanksgiving Day. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
More than 60 years ago, R.J. Rangich opened up Rangich Brothers thing in quality and family. Those families continue today to live through our family, staff, those who buy our